Tylenol does not cause autism in kids. Look, this was a groundbreaking, massive story as of Monday, depending on when you see this. The president, Robert Kennedy, who I do actually like Robert Kennedy a lot, they came out, they said that there is a strong correlation between women who take Tylenol during pregnancy and autism, and have even told women to not take Tylenol at all. And look, it is technically possible, it is plausible that is true. I will acknowledge I can't disprove a negative, the same way you couldn't prove to me I'm not wearing 5 shirts right now. It looks like I'm only wearing 2, this one and this one, but you can't disprove the fact that if I make the claim I'm wearing 5. So it's impossible for me to disprove that. But I would like to point out that there is a massive fallacy that a lot of people, especially Robert Kennedy, who I do like, as I've mentioned, and that is that they like to bring up the Amish community. And I find this completely laughable. Anyone who takes a second to think about this understands why the Amish community has no autism cases. And that's because they don't get tested. Or they don't get tested as frequently. Look, if you want to bring up that 30% of the population in the United States has autism, which is mostly boys, so it's, I guess, 50% of boys and then some girls here and there have autism, and then you look at the Amish community and then they have a 0% rate. Look, if they're not getting tested, they can't have it. This is like if you never got tested for COVID and you said, look, whatever I did was great in handling COVID. If you never got tested, you can never be found to have COVID. So the Amish community is an absolutely laughable, it's just a laughable thing to bring up. And look, if the Amish community is so healthy, if they're just magnificently healthy, how about we compare their life expectancy to other United States citizens who don't eat fast food? Because I'm going to take a wild guess that it's pretty similar. I don't have the data if somebody wants to link me a study, but the Amish community lives a little bit longer than the general United States population. I don't think it's because they drink raw milk. I don't think it's because they don't look at a phone. It's probably because they're not eating fast food. That'd be my correlation. If we want to talk about 2 lines going up at the same time, I'd probably say that the Amish community eats healthier, and that's why they live a little bit longer than the general U.S. population. Now, if you can prove, if you look at some healthy young men and then some healthy young Amish men, and the Amish men are just hormonally way better, they're more athletic, they're stronger, etc., maybe I'll reconsider. But that evidence has not been presented to the general public. And I do want to point out that this kind of gets brought up with vaccines and medication. Once again, with the Amish community, people say that we have 20 times the amount of vaccines as we did 100 years ago, or 70 years ago, or 50 years ago, and we have 20 times the amount of autism cases. And it's like, once again, okay, cool. People weren't getting tested for autism. Currently, any mom, if their boy can't focus for 12 hours straight on a boring class in school, they automatically get tested. Every single boy gets tested for ADHD, autism, etc., etc. A lot of people are just lying about being autistic. A lot of people find it trendy, they find it cool, but everyone who is autistic, they know it. 50 years ago, if you couldn't sit down for 12 hours straight on a boring science lecture, that was called being normal. So I don't think there's been, and I'm not saying there have been no changes. The iPhone is a massive invention that young people have that people 50 years ago didn't have. Food dyes, sugar, there's a lot of unhealthy things in general that have been bestowed upon the younger generation. And there was fast food back then, but it's a lot more readable now. So yeah, there have definitely been some changes, but to say that there was nobody with autism or ADHD 50 years ago, and the reason why there's autism is because people are taking Tylenol, you got to give me something. You legitimately have to give me something. And I do want to point out, number one, there's actually no proof of this. It's not been made to the public that women who take Tylenol are more likely to have autistic children. But I would like to point out, even if that's true, and I'm gonna take their word for it because they haven't released anything to prove it. Let's say that is true. How do we know that women that are sick during pregnancy, maybe some women are a lot more healthy during pregnancy because they were healthier going into the pregnancy, versus women who were sicker and less healthy going into pregnancy, they're more likely to be taking medication throughout the pregnancy. So maybe women who are less healthy give birth to less healthy babies. That's a crazy correlation. That, I just put 2 pieces together. It's kind of the same thing with, people, and you can Google this. I was actually surprised to find this out, and then I thought about it, and it just kind of makes sense. People who take multivitamins have a shorter life expectancy than those who do not. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because I take a multivitamin and I take some other supplements as well. And I'm like, that multivitamin, they're, in my opinion, they would be neutral to slightly positive for people's health. And this specific action of taking the multivitamin is beneficial to health or neutral depending on which multivitamin it is, et cetera, et cetera. But the people taking multivitamins are less healthy because they're going to the doctor gives them a bunch of different things they can take. So the Tylenol isn't necessarily the reason why people are getting autism. It's because the people that are taking the Tylenol, it's a few steps removed, and I think people need to consider that. It's not the Tylenol that's causing it, it's people that need Tylenol are the ones giving birth to less healthy babies. I think that's the most clear-cut conclusion. Maybe there is an ingredient in Tylenol that they just haven't released any information on, and it's going to completely blow our mind, and I'm going to make an apology video for Robert Kennedy. But I think kind of my issue with this whole operation is I do like people questioning preconceived notions. I do not believe we should just trust authority blindly. I don't believe we should trust the doctor community as a whole without questioning anything. Questioning things are good, but it's word. If I had the option to blindly trust doctors or to blindly oppose them, I would rather blindly trust them. I think you should be skeptical, but what's happening in the modern era, and not just with Robert Kennedy, but with everyone, is they're not questioning doctors. What they're doing is whatever doctors say, they do the opposite of it. And that's the issue. Robert Kennedy got into the White House and his goal was to prove why vaccines were causing cancer and autism and body fat. His job wasn't to investigate it. I don't believe that's what he did. I'm open to it. I'm open to it. If there's a causative study that proves that there's an ingredient in Tylenol that makes women, that transmutes into the baby and gives them autism, I'd be interested in it. But I'd like to point out that my presupposition, my current belief is that autism maybe has slightly risen, potentially. I'm not even sure if that's the case, but the majority of the reason why we have significantly more, because if you look at the numbers, it's astonishing. You're like, there's got to be foul play here. We went from not testing, back in the day, if you were in the 1960s, 1970s, for someone to get tested for autism, they have to be dysfunctional. Now, the majority of people with autism, you wouldn't even know it. You probably, if you're watching this and you're a guy, you probably at least know one person with autism, ADHD, and all the other initials that I don't even remember.